All right, another spark, another build, another building's great to see you back to the Forge. Today we're tackling something fundamental, something critical, a core mechanic, tools underpinning every clash, something every player structure, from rookie to veteran, every moment of resilience needs to understand. Titans. We're talking about when Titans threshold, the KO conditions.
That's right, Tulin. More than just a pivotal moment in any game. ST, the fall of a Titan isn't just a piece off the board. It can be the game system dictating survival. But Tools and Titans has a unique way of handling this. Even a Titan's identity deep into the lore. It's the difference between fleeting presence and enduring legacy.
Before we strip this down, maybe some listeners are just starting their journey with Tools and Titans. The flow of battle. Tatiana, can you give us that quick rundown?
The rhythm of the game is key.
Play out?
So how do you play Tools and Titans? It's quite elegant, really.
Draw your cards.
How do you play Tools and Titans?
Charge your energy.
Easy.
Build your
Draw
field.
your cards. Charge your energy.
Powers.
Build your field.
Clash with your
Act
Titans.
With your powers.
End your
Clash
turn.
with your Titans.
6 steps.
End your turn.
One epic battle.
6 steps. Understanding ST
battle.
adds layers to each step.
Sounds
Ready
simple,
to dive into that Clockwork,
but we know how much strategy gets packed in there.
Tatiana.
Now let's zoom in on those Titans.
Tools and Titans podcast.
They're the heart of your deck,
Episode 17.
Your strategic anchor, your progression engine, structural threshold. But they're not the hidden clockwork of TNT
Not at all.
TCG.
Though it's important to understand how different they are
from
your standard units or creatures in other TCGs. Structural thresholds are permanently face up in the Titan display panel. Integrity value They're never played from your hand. Titans. And don't just get a measure of their durability to the Junkyard. Their ability to withstand game stresses.
How do you knock one out? So the number telling you how much punishment a card takes before it's toast? There are a couple of primary ways this happens.
Precisely. It determines how much damage absorbed before junkyarding.
That's craft
critical
power
for structures.
For the uninitiated.
Its resistance to clash damage. If a Titan's craft power or zone effect is reduced to 0, that Titan is considered KO'd.
Low ST
it's that straightforward. But how that CP gets reduced, it influences
where the strategies
come in hostile zones.
So what chips away at that CP?
Echo burn. Decay.
I'm guessing opposing
higher
tools
ST means
or other
staying
Titans
power.
can do it during
not
the
just
clash
direct
phase.
Then.
Yep, that's a major one.
Overall
Attacks
resilience?
from opposing tools
How does
or
ST
Titans.
function
Then you
differently
have
for
burn
structures
effects
and
from
Titans?
scorch cards. Good question. Favorite of Rustborn
Let's talk
strategies.
structures.
Think of for them,
constant,
ST
unavoidable
is paramount.
Ooh,
It defines
nasty.
how long
What
a
else?
structure is active.
Zone hazards?
It's lifeline.
For
Zone
instance,
hazards indeed.
hydro pump
Things
station,
like a decay pulse or an
ST3
instability
takes 3
burn.
damage.
The environment
It's
itself can wear a
junkyarded,
Titan
sent
down.
to the junkyard zone.
And of course there are
Effects
targeted
gone.
act phase abilities.
A clear, direct
Cards
relationship.
that might say something like
Tangible impact.
drains 2 CP from
And
opposing
some tasks
Titan.
or
tools need
So a
minimum
key
ST
strategic
on a
note
structure
here.
to trigger
Titans
or
don't
sustain
have
an
separate
effect.
health points.
ST isn't
Their
just health.
CP is
It can
their
be a
health
strategic
pool.
prerequisite.
It's the resource
So
that
damage
keeps
could
them
turn off an
standing.
ability
Precisely.
even if the structure
now,
isn't
the
destroyed?
second main way a Titan
Correct.
can be KO'd
And
is
ST
through
isn't
conditional
static.
removal effects.
Structures can be
These are a
healed,
bit more
reinforced,
dramatic.
or
ST reduced by
Conditional
card
removal?
effects.
Sounds
Timber
like some
clamp might
high-impact
boost
cards.
ST. They
Scorch
are.
barrier
These
could
are
reduce
advanced
it.
card effects
A
that will
constant tug of
explicitly
war.
state something like,
Now for
if
Titans,
target Titan's
how does
CP
ST
is
affect
10 or
them?
less,
They
junkyard
feel
it.
more permanent.
Very direct. They are.
So not just
Their
reducing
ST
CP
functions
to 0,
differently.
but
A Titan's
specific
base
condition that
ST
says
determines
you're done.
resilience in clashes.
Are these common?
Or when directly
No,
attacked.
they're quite rare,
but and usually
Titans
high
are
cost
generally
to play.
not
Think of them as
junkyarded
late game
from
finishers.
ST
damage alone. Narratively,
So,
they represent things
0
like a
ST
divine
on a Titan
override,
isn't
a
an
sudden,
immediate KO?
overwhelming
Thematically
rust-born
right,
corruption,
they're legends.
or perhaps the
Indeed.
collapse of a sacred
Effects
shrine
might
that was
temporarily
empowering the
alter
Titan ST.
Gotcha.
But
So,
knockout
it's
usually
crucial.
occurs when ST is 0
Titans can't
and
just
other
be
conditions are
junkyarded
met.
by normal
Most
destroy
common
unit
CP
triggers.
craft power
It
dash
has to be
also
explicit
depleted.
KO wording,
0
or
street,
their
0
CP
court
hitting
place.
0.
Titan That's the core of it for standard
so Titan
PvP.
ST is more
but there's
like
a third,
combat
more
effectiveness or
specialized
integrity,
situation.
not a direct
Sometimes a
countdown like
Titan
for
is destroyed
structures.
in special formats. Well put.
Like PvE
it's part of their
boss
overall
modes? The
survivability
Hollow
with core
Crucible, for
power and
instance?
unique abilities.
Exactly.
They're tough to take
In
down.
those
scenarios,
All
Titans
right.
can be
We know
overrun
what
or
ST is,
corrupted by
how it
unique
works.
boss conditions.
Let's get to strategic
or in
roles.
certain PvP
How
plus
does a
variant
savvy
rules.
player use
Some cards,
ST?
like a red mesh
This is where
implode,
ST becomes
might
a crucial
even convert
resource.
a Titan to
Several
its
key
rust-born
roles.
form, effectively
First,
KOing
zone
the
control
original
and
durability.
So those are meta
Intuitive.
rule overrides. Higher street tied to
Sticks
specific
longer.
events or
Precisely.
campaign expansions.
High ST
not your
structures
everyday
are
match.
bedrock for
Correct.
zone control.
They add
lockdown
unique
flavors
flavors to
longer
those game
hold
modes.
a shrine.
Okay,
resist
so
hazard damage.
we know how a Titan
Players
can
put
be
high
knocked
ST
out.
structures in
But
key
what's the
spots like
strategic
center
impact?
control zone
Why
to
is
resist
this such
conflict
a big
damage.
deal?
Apart
An
from
anchor for
losing your
board
big
presence?
cool character.
Next,
Well, first and foremost, engine survivability. It's often a direct win condition. Powerful T and KO is one of the combo primary game-winning tasks or tools in Titans, needing multiple turns the other for full value. Ascension and Shrine control.
Is their time. Game over, man. Game over. Powering the combo. What else happens when your Titan hits the plan falls apart?
It's a cascade effect. If your Titan is KO'd, any cards in your zone that require Titan synergy benefit increases like if its tethered structure or those special Ascension powers for 3 rounds. They deactivate opponent burns ST down your engine sputters and dies.
Managing ST. And what about Ascension itself? Protects or disrupts Titan was on the path to becoming even more powerful?
Then third, Junkyard economy KO'd before they manage to ascend, perhaps. They cannot ascend. How does ST help the Junkyard? They're removed from that progression chain entirely.
When a structure hits the Junkyard. And I imagine it breaks all sorts of other synergies too?
You got
Things tied to specific Titan traits, weave effects, structures.
They might sacrifice low ST structures. All those carefully constructed links can shatter. Power decay effects that relied on your Titan's presence. ST isn't just weave elemental alignments, fuels abilities from the Junkyard that were empowered by your Titan's specific traits.
Durability triggering
they might become
destruction
unstable
synergies.
Or completely
other strategic
unusable.
Roles. Can you give us an example?
Fourth defensive buffer versus tool damage. Let's take tools directly target welder, Titan, like forged glow or static is on the ropes. They dismantle boards piece by piece. The opponent plays a card. Let's call it Rust Shock Nova, and it deals exactly 4 CP damage. Force overcommitment to remove 1 resilient structure. Buys time. Misdirects damage from critical cards. Fusure is removed from the board. The opponent clenches lightning rod. They've just won by a Titan KO. All of Fusure's linked abilities go dark.
Is much more than an indecisive end.
What's more, don't forget every Titan turn starts like this. Draw,
or summons
charge,
in other games.
Building act, clash, and
Can we clarify that distinction a bit more?
Infinite ways to forge victory. Let's break down Titans versus your typical summon or tool card.
Design philosophy behind
summons and
ST.
tools, yes, quite casually. Absolutely. Titans, first, no, simple not casually, but scalable. Only through
Easy
these
to
specific
understand,
KO
like
conditions.
HP.
Played from
But
hand?
integrates into complex systems.
Summons and
clash,
tools,
weave
yes.
effects, zone
Titans,
hazards,
never.
task timing.
Easy
They
to
start
learn,
in their
hard to
display
master.
Is
How
their
does it
KO
support
a loss
playstyles?
condition? For a Titan, yes, tactical it's one of the main ways to lose. Defensive summon or tool favor high ST structures those are just and tactical ST reinforcement.
Always visible.
Building a fortress.
Titans,
aggro
yes.
decks seek
Summons
ST
and
piercing
tools,
or scorch-based
And can they
destabilizers.
be replaced? Card choice. If a tool is destroyed, you can play another. Defines game plan. What about a Titan? Room for future expansion?
Generally, no. Definitely. A Titan
is
opens
unique.
room for expansion. The main exception is if they are replaced via corruption, turning into a Rustborn, barrier through ascension, evolving into a more powerful form. A system
but you
built
don't
to
just
grow.
slot in a new one.
Concrete example. So this whole KO mechanic card interactions with why does it work so well for tools and
Heat
Titans?
core bracework.
What's
Common
the design
structure
philosophy?
starts at ST4.
There are a few pillars.
Absorbs 2 zone
First,
pulses or
narrative
tool
logic.
hits before junkyarding.
Titans are framed
moderately
as powerful,
sturdy, almost
standard,
divine beings.
something modifying
It makes sense
ST.
that only epic conditions
Tatiana.
can truly defeat them. Timber clamp.
It wouldn't
a tool
feel right if
attached
they
to
were
a
as
structure
fragile as
boosts
a basic
its ST
tool.
by +1 while
What about
active.
game balance?
Makes a key structure
CP
harder to
as their
remove.
core
Health
Aggressive
helps
side,
preserve synergy
tearing
without
ST down.
massive unit stacking.
Scorch
The
chambers.
Titan is the
Event
core.
or flux
This
card
also
hits an
creates
entire
strategic
zone.
tension,
Reduces
protecting
ST of
your
all
Titan's
structures
in
CP
zone 1
becomes
by
central.
2.
And it must
Defenses
feed into
significantly
faction
weakened.
diversity, right?
Ouch.
You mentioned
Devastating if
Rustborn
timed
liking
right.
scorch effects. ST
Exactly.
interacting with tasks
Rustborn and
or
Flux decks
regeneration.
focus on CP drain.
Yes.
Other
Compost
factions
engine,
might protect
structure,
CP or race to a
ST3,
different win con,
not super high,
and finally,
but regenerates
win
one ST
if
if
your
the task
Titan
completes
falls.
same
Your
round.
deck's identity
Rewards
collapses.
play,
makes
it's
itself
clean,
resilient,
decisive,
Clever.
and flavorful.
Encourages a playstyle.
All right, let's dig deeper into
so the
craft
final thought
power
on
itself.
ST's importance. CP.
Structural threshold isn't
You
just
said it's
defense.
the durability
It's
resource
tempo,
of a Titan.
a strategic timer,
What all does it do?
a zone tool,
Mechanically?
knowing when to protect
Well,
ST,
it's the health pool.
when to burn
CP
through it,
hits 0,
how to manipulate
Titan
it,
KO'd.
can be the difference
Job
between
1.
junkyarding
But
your
it's also
board
a prime
or
target for
ascending your
offensive
Titan.
effects.
CP
Tooling.
burn cards,
Now,
zone damage.
Titan ST
And it's not just about
specifically.
staying alive,
You
is
said
it?
Titans are
Doesn't
anchors,
CP level also gain some
paragons of
abilities?
endurance.
It does.
They are.
CP can be a
Their
gatekeeper
ST
for
shouldn't
ascension,
fluctuate wildly.
and some
It
high-tier
must be
synergy
measurable,
abilities or
trackable,
Titan
meaningful,
passives
and
might
respect
only
their
be
status.
active if CP is
Especially
above a certain
facing
level,
pressure hazard
say,
accumulation,
greater than 10 CP,
scorch or red
So
mesh.
it's a dynamic evaluating
resource
the current system for
and a
Titan
buffer,
ST.
right?
How does it
Representing
hold up?
staying power.
Right now, Titans has static ST.
It stabilizes your board,
such as
and
Voltara
unlike generic
or
life
Carpenter,
points,
CP
in
rarely
tools and
reduced
Titans
outside
is
indirect
deeply
effects or
integrated
rare
into
conditions.
narrative and
And Titan
mechanics.
KO
not
is
just a
usually
number.
CP plus ST collapse. So
Correct.
when designing,
Clean,
what's the
straightforward,
thinking on the
but
CP
also
range
limited
for
in
Titans?
impact.
It's
Titans
a crucial
rarely feel
balancing act.
existential pressure from ST
Absolutely.
loss alone.
The system
CP
needs
feels
several
like their
things.
real health. It needs to be
So
simple
Titan
so players
ST,
can track
more
CP at a
flavor than
glance.
critical
Fewer
vulnerability?
digits mean better
In many
UI.
scenarios,
Keeps
yes.
the mental load
Doesn't
down.
always create
Balanced,
the tactical tension
obviously.
it could.
This
CP
leads
loss
to a
has to matter,
perturbation, but not be overly punishing.
Disrupt the assumption.
And it needs to be
Titan
thematic.
ST
So
is
Titans
just
with
flavor.
different trades feel
Challenge
distinct.
that.
A Carpenter
Exactly.
Titan versus
Make
a Rustborn.
Titan ST more
modular
reactive,
too, so
scaled.
CP
We
interacts
could
with other
introduce
mechanics
new
like pressure-based
or
win
healing.
strategies.
And finally,
ST
tension
archetypes.
Makes
CP
players
loss should
protect
feel
their Titan
meaningful as
more.
the Titan weakens. Encourage structure-based
This sounds
Titans
like it
to
leads
lean into
directly
defense.
into having different
Allow
tiers of
hazards and
CP.
zone control to weaken
Not all
Titans over
Titans
time.
are created equal.
Adds a new
in raw
dimension to
staying
Titan
power.
clashes.
That's the
How
core
to
idea.
implement
The
a
game
proposal?
uses a
Yes.
CP
A
tier
proposed
system
ST
with a very
tier
thematic
system.
naming convention.
Resilience
the Forge-like
Corebands.
tiers. Simple
Forge-like
three-tier
tiers.
ST system
I like
reflecting
that.
Titan durability.
What are they?
Without overcomplicating
tiers.
gameplay. First is the Spark
Resilience
tier.
Corebands.
CP range
Fits
18 to
T and T
22.
lore.
Think new
The tiers?
forges, volatile
Tier
energy,
1,
but
ST
fast to get
4 to
going.
5.
The
So,
Crackbind core.
These are your more fragile
agile,
Titans,
tactical,
used for
combo
aggro,
Titans.
combo, or
Narratively,
utility-focused
Glassblade
Titans, perhaps?
strike fast,
Precisely.
shatter early. Low CP
High
often means
offense,
higher
utility,
offensive
more
potential or
fragile.
unique abilities,
Next.
but they're vulnerable.
Tier 2.
Titans like
ST6 to
Glyphia,
7,
Kleptorix,
the Forgeblade
even
core,
Etherlin,
balanced,
their strength
standard
isn't
raw
durability
endurance.
Titans. The strategy,
Narratively,
strike fast,
reinforce
ascend
Titans,
early, or
survive
die
average
trying.
wear,
High
baseline.
risk, sturdy
High
workhorses. What's
Tier
next?
3.
The flame tier,
heavyweights?
CP
Precisely.
range, 23
Tier 3
to 26.
ST 8 to
This
9.
represents
The
steady
bedrock
heat,
core.
adaptable
Heavy,
shaping,
structure-based,
your well-rounded
defensive
defensive Titans,
The workhorses.
narratively unyielding monoliths,
tool-focused decks,
hard to budge,
zone control.
exceptionally resilient.
Exactly.
Ferrum,
Crackbind,
Carpenter,
Forgeblade,
Voltra,
Bedrock.
even Printheon.
Examples
They
with
offer mid-game
existing
resilience,
Titans?
good synergy scaling, and
Voltara,
are key to
fast,
control strategies.
shock-focused.
They can
Tier
tank
1,
moderate
ST4.
pressure.
Makes
Carpenter,
sense. Balanced.
Harmony Builder,
And
Tier
the top
2,
tier?
ST6.
The real heavyweights?
Constructus, Fortress
That's the
Archetype,
Ember Core
Tier
tier.
3, CP
ST8,
range 27 to 30.
Restara,
Deep
Manipulator,
sustained energy,
Tier
1,
It resists
ST4.
fading.
These Titans
Machinara,
are tough. Systemic
Your
resilience.
defenders,
Tier
support
3,
anchors, big tanks,
ST9.
or shrine-centric
This tier
Titans?
system
You've got
solidifies
it.
Titan
Think
identity.
Fusio, whose
Strategic
volatility needs a
advantages of
higher
this
CP
system?
ceiling. Several
Or
gameplay
Restara,
impacts.
Chivolt,
Introduces
often
soft
epic
KO
scale
strategies,
Titans,
sometimes with
Titans
game
push
warping
to
abilities.
ST0 via
High
zone
CP
decay,
means hard to KO
hazards,
through
pressure
damage,
decks,
but vulnerable
expands
to
targeting
slow CP
logic,
rot or bypass.
tools or scorch cards
Strategy
can target
is often
Titan
delay-based,
ST directly,
stalling until
elevates
ascension,
defensive
or establishing
builds.
a lock. Players focus
Spark,
on ST
flame,
reinforcing to
Ember
fortify
Core.
Titans, enables
A clear
new win
picture of a
paths.
Titan's role
ST
and
collapse
durability.
becomes a
And
mid-game
these
win
CP
trigger for
values
attrition.
are their lifeblood,
Customization levers,
constantly under
future
threat.
expansions, constantly
ST
upgrades.
That's why
swap
every
resilience
action
matters.
types.
Every
Robust
Titan
evolution
turn,
for
draw,
Titan ST.
charge, building
Rule
act,
implementation,
clash, end,
new Titan
6
KO
steps.
condition.
Infinite ways to
Proposed
forge your
Titan
victory
KO condition.
or manage
Titan
dwindling
KO'd
CP.
if ST
reaches
You mentioned
0
earlier
and 1
B,
is true.
some conditional
Titan
removals
CP
target
is also
Titans at 10 CP
0.0
or less.
affected by a
Is there a
Titan
specific
targeting
design
KO
idea
card
around that
effect.
10
Fail a
CP
weave
threshold?
instability threshold
Yes.
tied to Titan
Titans that
durability.
fall below
10
ST0
CP enter
becomes
a critical state.
vulnerability,
The rule is,
enabling
if
other
a Titan
effects for
starts its
KO,
controller's turn
not
at checkpoint
instant
9
KO
or
alone,
lower,
unless
certain
CP
cards or
gone,
effects might specifically
puts
target,
Titan in
suppress, or even
extreme
KO
danger.
them directly. Precisely.
The critical
Makes
state
ST matter more
adds a layer
without
of
making
dread.
Titans fragile.
So what does this bring
Still
to the
epic,
game?
but structural
Several
integrity
things.
is a tangible
First,
concern.
strategic
planning.
Conclusion
Players
on
must
this
think
evolved
ahead about
Titan
CP
ST
management.
system?
Can't
With
just let your
Resilience
Titan dip
Corebands
into
and
critical
revised
without a
KO.
plan. Titan
A new
ST
decision
becomes
point.
true,
Push
targetable
offense
durability.
or pull back
Titans
from the
gain
brink.
tactical tension,
What about
pressure
card
points.
design?
Decks gain new
Opens
identity
up
hooks,
design space,
ST reduction,
cards
healing,
like,
etc.
if
Opposing Titan
Sounds like
is
a
in
change
critical
adding
state,
significant
stun
depth,
it for one turn.
making that hidden
or
Clockwork
defensively, if your Titan
more
enters
visible,
critical
more
state,
critical.
unlock emergency passive.
It really does.
A vulnerability,
Understanding
but
and
also a
manipulating
trigger
structural
for
threshold
unique effects.
for structures and
it
your
ramps
Titan
up tension
becomes becomes a vital skill, massively.
defining
Players
a
must
master
race to
Titan
ascend or
strategist.
heal before critical
In
collapse.
every match of tools and
creates
Titans,
desperate,
your
nail-biting
tradecraft
moments.
unfolds.
Okay, so we
in
have
6
CP
simple
tiers:
moves:
Spark,
Draw,
Flame,
Charge,
Ember
Building
Core,
it,
Act, giving
Clash,
baseline
End,
durability.
Simplicity
How does
for the
damage
novice.
scaling work against
Mastery
these?
for the Titan.